Okay, so for today's notes, we're going to continue with slope. We are on page 4, 5 of the notebook, and we're going to learn about the slope formula. So previously we had found slope from a graph. We picked out 2 points on the line, and we used those to figure out the slope. For the slope formula, we're going to get 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, and we are going to use a formula that I'm about to give you to figure out the slope. So first I want to point out that for the 2 points, so there's two of them, and the reason that they have these subscript 1 and subscript 2 is because the first point is point 1 and the second point is point 2. And a lot of times students get confused if those ones and those twos are actually part of a math formula. They're not. They're just, you have two of these points. They just can't be x, y. You wouldn't know which was which. So the 1 means that that's point 1. The 2 means it's point 2. And it doesn't really matter which one's which. You just have to keep them straight. The formula is going to be m equals, and you are going to take the difference in the y values in the ordered pairs and divide it by the difference in the x value in the ordered pair. So notice I did y2 minus y1 on top, x2 minus x1 on the bottom. You can actually reverse that and do y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. You just have to make sure you stay in the same order. So I did 2 first and then 1 on the first example. I did y1 and then 2 on the second example. So you just have to make sure you're consistent with that. Y's are always on top. The difference in the Y's are always on the top. That's the change in the vertical, and X's, the difference in the X's in the bottom, that's the change in the horizontal. So it's basically, believe it or not, what you were doing when you found the legs of the triangle, but you were counting the squares. This time you're using the ordered pair values to figure out those numbers. So let's do some examples together. So your formula is always going to be, when you have 2 points, it's always going to have these things going on. It's going to be a division, a fraction. You're going to be subtracting. So you are always going to have that going on. So you can set it up ahead of time. The other thing you can do is you can take your points and kind of put them on top of each other. And this helps you see, line up your y's and line up your x's. So when I do that, I want to subtract y2 minus y1. So I can do 3 minus 1 on top. And then I want to subtract the x's on the bottom, so 4 minus 1 on the bottom. And when I do that, I get 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3. If I decided to go in the other direction, notice you can do it either way and it will work. If I decide to use this as my first point, and this is my second point, I can then show it's going to come out the same way because I'm going to end up with 1 minus 3 over 1 minus 4, which is -2 over -3, which negative over negative is positive, which is also 2/3. So it doesn't matter which one you pick as point 1 or point 2, you just have to be consistent when you set it up. So let's look at number 2. So again, every single one of these problems has this going on, right? You always have that. So I'm going to stack my first point under my second point, and now I can line up those y's. And I'm going to do -2 minus 4 for my y subtraction, and 10, and notice this minus is already here, but this is a -2. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They see a minus here, and they just assume they don't need to put the minus for their number. But you do. You're going to end up with 2, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to turn this into an addition sign, right? So it's going to be -2 minus 4 over 10 plus 2. When you subtract a negative number, it turns into addition. So then I'm going to subtract the top. -2 minus 4 is -6. 10 plus 2 is 12. I need to simplify this fraction. -6 over 12 simplifies to be -1 over 2. So the slope for this one is -1 over 2. Next up, number 3. I'm going to set up my problem like this, and then I'm going to stack my points. Now I'm going to subtract the y's on top, so I'm going to do -5, and then subtract the 5, and then -8 minus -4. Notice I get that double negative. Just going to turn that into a positive. Looks kind of like a weird positive, but it's a positive. And now on top, -5 minus 5. Some people might think that's 0, but it's not. You borrowed $5, you borrowed 5 more dollars, you borrowed $10 altogether. So one of the tricky parts of this is if you're not good with positive and negative operations, you're going to run into trouble. So you got to really be careful with that. The bottom is -8 plus 4. That's -4. So these negatives are going to cancel out to make this a positive number, and they both can be divided by 2. They both have 2 as a factor. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this slope is going to be 5 over 2. Okay, number 4. Again, set it up. I'm going to stack my points so I can see it more clearly. On the top of the fraction, it's going to be 4 minus 0. On the bottom, it's going to be -2 minus 10. 4 minus 0 is 4. -2 minus 10 is -12. This is going to be a negative value because the bottom's negative, so it's going to be a negative slope, and they both have 4 as a common factor. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. So -1/3 is that slope. A couple more we'll do together. For this one, I'm going to set it up. I'm going to stack my points, put that 5 over 9 underneath the 3 over 9. So when I do the top part, it's 9 minus 9. And when I do the bottom part, it's 3 minus 5. 9 minus 9 is 0. 3 minus 5 is -2. But anything, 0 divided by any number, doesn't matter what it is always going to be 0, right? No matter what. So this is 0. My slope is 0. And guess what? If my slope is 0, I know that this line is going to be horizontal or vertical. And you should know that because we did that in the last set of notes. So a slope of 0 should have what kind of line? Horizontal or vertical? So 6. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to stack this point under the first point. And when I subtract my y's, I get 8 minus 5. I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to start with the 8. And on the bottom, I've got -7 minus -7. Notice those were two -7s, and I have a negative in the middle. This is going to become addition. And then on the top, I get 8 minus 5 is 3. On the bottom, -7 and +7 is 0. So here's another fun fact. Any number divided by 0 is undefined. So see that n? That NO, that means no, you can't do it. It's undefined. So think about that. When the zero's on the bottom, no, not going to work. So this is an undefined slope, and you should be able to tell if this line is vertical or horizontal based on the kind of slope it is. So you're going to finish 7, 8, 9, and 10. So be careful setting them up and doing your integer operations to make sure your signs are right, and make sure you reduce anything that needs to be reduced. So you're going to finish that. You've got a couple more, 11 and 12 to finish, and we are going to talk about going backwards. So sometimes they're going to give you the slope, and they're going to give you an ordered pair. And can you figure out the missing point, right? So you're going to, for this example, if the slope of the line passed through the points -5, 6, and 5y, they don't give you this y, is -4 over 5, find y. So how do you set this up? So you know your m. Your m is -4 over 5. So if we use our formula, instead of saying m equals, we're going to say -4 over 5 equals, okay? And now when we do y2 minus y1, I'm going to just put this point underneath, right? It's going to be y minus 6 on top, because that's the thing I don't know, that variable y, and it's going to be 5 minus -5 on the bottom. So this becomes a plus, right? And when I look at this, it's an algebraic proportion. So I'm going to use what I know about solving algebraic proportions to solve this. I'm going to put parentheses around this, and I'm going to do cross products. So I have 5 times y minus 6 equals, and then I'm going to multiply this. I know that this equals 10, so it's going to be -4 times 10 equals -40, and now I've got an equation to solve. So I'm going to get rid of my parentheses and do 5y minus 30 equals -40. I'm going to then add 30 to both sides, and I end up with 5y equals negative 10, because negative 40 plus 30 is 10. I divide both sides by 5, and I get y equals negative 2. So I solve for y. So the point would be 5, negative 2. That would make that slope negative 4 over 5. So these are definitely way more tricky because you have to be able to set them up, and then you have to be able to solve them. So we'll do one of them together, one more together. So again, you're using that formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, but you know m. They tell you m. So right away, you know the left-hand side of this equation. Now you're going to do that slope formula, and I'm going to stack this point underneath and set up my slope formula. And for my y's, I have 6 minus negative 2, and I have x minus negative 3. These are both going to become addition, right? And now I am going to set this up as an algebraic proportion. So my variable is here, right? I'll make that a fraction too. And now I'm going to do my math where I do 2 times x plus 3 equals, and then I do 1 times, and you know 6 plus 2 is 8, so 1 times 8 is 8, and now I'm going to solve this equation. 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is 6. Now I can solve. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. 2x equals 6. Divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 3. So I found that missing value. X is 3. So you are going to try these on your own, and don't be afraid of the fractions. Like if you go to set up number 14, it's going to be 3 over 2, right? That's the slope. And then when I go to set up the other part, right, it's going to be negative 7 minus negative 4 over x minus 0. And you're just going to set up your algebraic proportion and solve it. So when you have a fraction, it's not that big a deal, because when you do your cross products, you're going to do 3 times x minus 0 equals 2 times 7, negative 7, and it's going to be plus 4, which is going to be negative 3, and you're going to solve from there. So you should be able to work on those, and that is your slope formula notes.